Great. So, welcome back to anyone who's already been with us in this series, and welcome particularly to anyone for whom it's their first time here. Dharma Night's a kind of drop-in format, so you can drop in and drop out anytime. We've been exploring, the series that we've been exploring, we called A New Buddhist Movement. So it's looking at this aspect that Buddhism is a tradition, but it's a tradition that is malleable. It's always changed when it's met new times, new circumstances, a new culture, and it's changed in order to help people grow, essentially. And that is happening again here now in the modern world. In connection with the West, but actually the modern world is largely not geographically specific, increasingly, isn't it? So that's what we've been exploring, and we've been exploring it through the sort of what's sometimes called the 6 distinctive emphases of this community of Buddhists, which sort of draws out 6 things that have been really sort of crucial, actually, to enabling people within this community to practice Buddhism in a modern context. And Saddharaja was just sort of summarising those. Listen to the previous week's and last week's summary. Saddharaja gave a very, very concise summary, which I won't fully do justice to, but he's saying in a way that the first 3 of these distinctive emphases kind of say where, in a way, Triratna exists in the Buddhist tradition, its place in the Buddhist tradition, namely that it's non-sectarian, which is the first one, that it sees going for refuge, the central act of a Buddhist, to be central in the articulation of what it means, what the Buddhist life is. That's a bit too short to understand if that's the first time you heard it, but just have a look at the previous week 2. And then also that's given rise to a unified order. So that means that unlike the rest of the Buddhist world, the order is not divided into an order of monks and nuns as 2 separate orders. Actually, it's one unified order, irrespective of gender, race, age, anything of that nature. So that sort of locates us, as it were, in the Buddhist tradition. And then these next 3 emphases that we're going to be exploring are sort of distinctive areas of practice that people have found very, very helpful. That perhaps haven't always been drawn out so fully in the Buddhist tradition. They're there in the Buddhist tradition, very clearly located in the Buddhist tradition, but they haven't necessarily been drawn out so fully. So this week we're looking at the area of friendship, which in Triratna we give quite an emphasis to. What I hope we can explore today is, what distinctively do we mean by friendship, actually, in Triratna? Because we mean it in quite a particular way. It's not a new word, is it? We all have come across that word from the playground up, but we mean it in quite a sort of particular way. So in what way do we? What particularly do we mean by using that word friendship in Triratna? And then how is it a practice, and what are the fruits of the practice of friendship? That's really what I'm hoping we can unfold a bit in this first half, and then further explore in groups in the second half. And the way we're going to do that is by inviting Saddharaja to come up, and I'm going to interview him about his own experience of friendship. So Saddharaja's been practicing Buddhism for 120 years, is it? Say again? 52 years, yeah, so it's not far off. Yeah, so very, very long time. I'm really pleased actually to interview Saddharaja. I've interviewed Saddharaja before, but he's just got so much experience actually. And I find through interviews, sometimes you can kind of mine, you can tap into that experience quite directly. He's quite immediate, is Saddharaja. So that's what I hope we can do this evening, just to sort of stimulate and kind of unfold this area of the practice of friendship. So Saddharaja, would you like to come up and clip on a microphone?
Good. Yeah.
Great. So, yeah, this area of what do we distinctly mean by friendship? We get so used to it in Triratna meaning something in particular that actually sometimes when we use the word we forget that we mean it in a particular way. So I wanted to ask you biographically, kind of going right back into when you first came along.
It's a long time ago.
So what is it you noticed about the way people were using this word friendship? What did you notice it involved, which was different from what that word had meant?
Well, the first thing I noticed is they didn't talk about friendship. They talked about spiritual friendship. This was the kind of buzzword at the time. And I thought, well, what's that? And then they were also using this other word, Kalyana Mitrata. And it took me probably about a year to work out that the two meant the same thing. Kalyana Mitrata was spiritual friendship, and it included ordinary friendship between people, but also there was a Dharma element in relation to that. That was pretty new for me, I must say, because I got involved in Buddhism when I was 14, and for the first 10 years of my life in the Dharma, I was practicing in the Tibetan and Zen traditions, and it wasn't unfriendly, it was friendly, but there wasn't any emphasis on spiritual friendship. It was all about the relationship with the teacher, the guru, particularly in Tibetan Buddhism, and that was kind of okay. I didn't mind that, that was all right, and I did make friends. But when I came along to Triratna, there was this new thing about spiritual friendship with people within the Sangha is a good thing, and you need to kind of cultivate that in some way, and I had absolutely no idea how to go about that. Right.
So in a way, it was being emphasised not just as an incidental, but as a practice, as an integral practice. It was a practice,
and this quote from the scriptures kept coming up. Which is, of course, the Buddha saying to Ananda that the spiritual life isn't just, friendship isn't just half the spiritual life, it's all of it. And I thought, well, what does that mean? How can it be all of it? Because there's meditation, there's Dharma study, there's all these other things. But over the last 42 years I've been involved in Triratna, I've got to realise what that is. And it is all the spiritual life, actually. I wouldn't have a spiritual life without friendship, actually.
Well, talking with you the other day, that became very clear, actually. But I'm sure that'll all come out. What more specifically, though? What has it led to you doing that you didn't previously do? With your friends.
Oh, right, yeah. Well, I think when I first came along, my experience first came along to Triratna, so I was 24. By that time I got a particular approach to friendship. I don't think I even used that word or thought in those sort of terms. I had mates, I had people that I knew. So I grew up in the north of England in a white working class agricultural community, and it got quite strict rules about how you engaged with people in terms of friendship. And
what were those sort of rules?
It all had to be a bit macho. You all had to sort of show that you were a bit, a bit macho, and which was very limiting for me. I mean, I could do that, but I could play sport and all the rest of it. But that was very limiting for me. I was groomed to be an agricultural worker, and that was never going to happen. I was an artist. I was interested in history and literature and all these kind of things. And those things were just not included in kind of mateship, as it were. So I needed to get out of that and get into something broader and bigger and deeper, and have different kinds of friends, a broader range of friendships. So when I came along, I wasn't very integrated really internally. I knew sort of the kind of conditioning I'd had, but I didn't really, it wasn't very broad. Like for instance, I'd never met a person of colour before that, you know, I just never met one in the community I came, so I was pretty unhappy with that. And I needed to broaden out and become a different kind of person. So the Sangha gave me that opportunity to do that. Because I met, well, that was the other thing back then. If you had friends, well, they did the same things as you. Right. You know, like Yashidaka plays golf, you know, and so he's got golf friends. He's obviously got a lot more going for him than that, but that would be how you'd have something in common, and you'd meet people that kind of way. I never really got on that well with that, really. I was interested in all sorts of people, so it was a revelation to come along to the Sangha and meet people from, well, even people from different classes, different cultures. You know, that enriched me in that kind of way. So I absolutely loved it.
Yeah. So would you say, in a way, you talked about sort of what this new version of friendship wasn't? You know, it wasn't macho, and it wasn't class-based, and it wasn't interest-based. So what were people doing that was different from that previous way of? Well, I think what did you have to do? What did it ask of you?
I think the first thing that I noticed was that people listened to you and took you seriously, and your interest in meditation, in ethics, the precepts, you know, wanting to go on retreat, explore the Buddhist teachers. People took me seriously. I'm not sure I even took myself seriously in relation to all that back then, but my very first contact, the first day I contacted Sri Ratna, 2 people approached me, just like you get in a class here, and asked me all about myself. What I noticed was they actually listened to what I was saying. I mean, I'd never had that before. And I think also, I didn't really listen to other people either very much, because I was too busy trying to get ready what I wanted to say, that I didn't really hear what they were saying. And I was used to that. But here, not only did people listen to me, the next time I saw them, they remembered what we talked about last time. I mean, I'd never experienced this before. You know, I came from a family where, you know, if you wanted to be heard, you just shouted louder, you know, and oops, here we go. It's one of the great things about Sangha is people are very helpful as well and forgiving when you make mistakes.
Great. Yeah, so just to move forward a bit from your first contact, you then went on retreat, didn't you?
Yeah, I went on a retreat,
And what did this kind of friendship ask of you on retreat?
Well, one of the things I noticed was there was a representative on that retreat of pretty much all the people that I'd been avoiding most of my life up until that point. And there they all were on the retreat. And I couldn't get away from them, they couldn't get away from me. We were just there doing the same thing. And I realised just how my connections with people were so superficial before that. But very quickly, within a day or two, all that kind of went. You know, what we did and what we were interested in, and we kind of connected on the level of the Dharma. Practice, meditation, ethics, our kind of journey within that, our interests. So I found people very encouraging. So there were people that were a lot more experienced than me, and they just seemed to be very, very encouraging. And there were also people who were like me, they were new, and they were just willing to kind of share their experience with me in a really friendly way, and it was great actually. I just really, really loved all that. And there were men and there were one of the first retreats I went on was a mixed one, and there was women, and I was able to just connect and talk. And I felt actually that, right, this is the first time I got a glimpse I could actually be me.
Right.
I could ever really be me. And of course I continued to feel that deeply, more and more deeply for the last 42 years. Later on I came across Saddharaja's teaching of the individual and the group, about the group is what we're supposed to do in life, which is normal. And there's the individual, and I felt I could become more of an individual here. Nothing was off limits. I could be interested in art and culture and literature and music and talk about that with people, as well as the Dharma. And they were interested, they were listening to me, and it's quite a new feeling. I just had people, my older brother would say, well, that's just all rubbish, what you're talking about is nonsense, just forget about it, I'm not interested in hearing it. Now I was getting a lot of that, I had a lot of that in my life, so within the Sangha people wanted to know who it was. But it's very encouraging as well in relation to the Dharma, so that was refreshing.
That's great. And just to ask about another side of that, I mean, people really listening to you, people really sharing their experience, so being much more honest, much more themselves. Was that kind of confronting as well? Was that sort of?
It was a bit, because people would often just say, well, I'm not very good at this, and so one of the things I noticed straight away, we'd talk about how the meditation had gone, and people say, well, I don't know, I was asleep for most of it. I thought, oh good, it's not just you. That's kind of happening to me as well. And so people were honest and open about their failings, things they found difficult. And once again, I'd come from a culture where that wasn't, you didn't really do that because someone might take advantage of you. So I was soon able to trust people.
Right,
Yeah, really appreciated that. Yeah.
And then you were telling me about your first, well, I don't know which retreat it was. I won't give the punchline away.
Oh, right.
You met someone, didn't you, on some retreat, some old duffer?
Oh yeah, I went. It was actually an open day at Padmaloka Retreat Centre, and I was just drifting around, looking at books, talking to people. I'd learned meditation. Meditations. I'd just done a session where we'd done one of the meditations, and so I was just looking at some books, and an older chap drifted over to see me, and he just, like here really, he just said, hello, who are you? Have you got any experience of meditation, of the Dharma? And we just got chatting, and it was really, really nice. And again, he really listened, really took me in. And I said, can you recommend any of the books? It was clear he had more experience than me. And can you recommend one of the books? So he recommended one of Subhuti's books. So I bought it, took it home. When I got home, I looked in the book, and there was the picture of the guy that I'd been talking to. And it was Saddharaja, the founder of our movement. The thing was, I was deeply, deeply impressed because he hadn't told me that. He'd just taken an interest in me. He wasn't sort of concerned with himself. And all the Buddhist teachers that I'd met before that, it was very obvious who the main person was, because all the flunkies around and all the rest of it. But he was just someone who just connected with me and was encouraging. And that had a deep effect. And I thought, this is where I need to be. So, completely unexpected. Also, I got talking to two guys a little bit older than me who were obviously more experienced. One of them had an enormous sort of ginger afro like this, and the other one had a really, really posh accent, like really posh. But they were great. They really listened to me. One of them was Subhuti, who turned out to be my preceptor in the end, and the other one was Vasantra. And people I've always had an immense respect for, but they were just themselves. They were normal, and they were interested and they listened and encouraging. Invited me along to a weekly class, and that was the start of it all, really.
Yeah.
But it was friendship that drew me in. The way that people could be, the natural way that people could be. I wanted that.
Yeah. That's very attractive.
I mean, I hope I never take it for granted, but it's the world I live in and have been living in for over 40 years. But I think it's a remarkable thing.
Yeah.
And I do have friendships outside of Triratna, but they can't go to the same depth.
Right.
Yeah.
So just to it's really good, Saddharaja. It's really interesting. In a way, one thing that you're saying is that what we mean by that word friendship is not merely one-to-one deep relationships, is it? It's a kind of ethos of kind of people first, people can be themselves.
That's right.
Sort of ethos of sort of lack of hierarchy, of accessibility.
That's it, yeah.
Ethos of friendship. Yeah.
Also, I just think there's less ego clinging in our movement. It's not all about me and my little world. If you go to cocktail parties or something like that, people are trying to tell you all about, their latest film they're producing, whatever it is. It's all about them, isn't it? And I think it was Oscar Wilde, the writer and wit, that once said, a bore is someone that insists on talking about themselves when you want to talk about yourself. And I think it can be a bit like that in ordinary life. It's not always the case, there's some great exceptions out there, but it's often the way. People want to talk about themselves, they want you to listen to me. But it was the opposite with Triratna, and I really value that.
Yeah. So just to draw this out a bit more, because there was one thing that you said on some of those early retreats. You said that you'd made connections with people who were still friends. Still very, very strong friends. Well, in a way, we sort of use that word to mean lots of different things, don't we? There's this model of sort of having that maybe you've got a limited inner circle of kind of more intimate friends, and then you've got a wider circle of kind of less intimate friends.
That's true, and that's definitely what's happened to me.
Right.
And I've got this huge mandala of friendship that's across the races, across the globe, across the classes, everything, the ages. But there's also an inner core as well of people that I know more deeply. But that inner core changes as well. There's that new people seem to come in and out of it as well. And but that inner core that I have, I would absolutely trust them with my life. I really would. Like there's a few of them are in this room actually, and Saddharaja is one of those, and we've worked together for a very, very long time and know each other extremely well. So I would trust Saddharaja with my life in Dharma City, Sudipta, I would give them my PIN numbers, because it's based on, it's not just that I know them, it's based on ethics, the deep practice of ethics. These are ethical people, and I know that because I've lived and worked with them for a very long time, and I know what they're like. And so they're in the core. But other people start coming into the core all the time. It's a kind of moving mass. And there have been times when I've thought, gosh, I've got so much friendship in my life. My oldest granddaughter said this to me recently. She said, Grandad, you kind of know so many people around the world and you're always talking to them. And I think she, how do you do that, Grandad? And I'll have to try and explain to her. It's quite difficult to explain to a 6-year-old, really. But that is true. Yeah. But at times I felt, well, there's a lot of people in my life. How could there be any more people in my life? But the last 5 or 6 years has seen a whole group of new people coming into my life with real depth, and has taken me to places which I could never have kind of imagined. So I like to remain open to that. A good example of that will be Simone. Some of you might know Simone.
Can I ask you a bit more about them later, actually?
Yeah,
I just wanted
sure.
to draw you about something. This thing about kind of an inner circle and an outer circle. Because one could understand that the main thing is to be in the inner circle. You know, that's
No, that's not.
Yeah.
I think with many people, they're in the inner circle because I've just been able to spend more time with them and do more stuff with them. But I think a lot of the people that are kind of more out, if I was to spend more time with them and was able to do things with them, then they would be in there as well. It's just simply that's how it's turned out. I no longer think in terms of, well, there's certain kinds of people I get on with and certain types I don't get on. That's all completely gone, you know, and
So it's interesting, isn't it? Because you know, some of those people on that retreat, probably you don't spend that much time with, but when you get back together, there's a kind of an immediacy. I mean, something that's sometimes hard to, like your granddaughter struggling to understand. That one thing that we mean by friendship is that we've got this shared vision of life. So it may be, say for us, I mean, we've been for coffee about twice. I mean, I've known you for what, kind of 25 years or something like that.
But I have a really good connection with you.
There's a kind of closeness that is not sort of is not warranted in a way by the amount of time, because there's a kind of shared vision of life. So that's also what we mean by friendship, isn't it?
Yeah, so there's a recognition of going for refuge, and you're doing the same thing as them. You're going for refuge in a similar kind of way. Maybe the details of how you do that might be a little bit different, but you recognise that in the same way. And that just crosses cultures for me in all sorts of ways. So that's the core of what something is. But you might be a completely different kind of person from them, with a very different background, but that vision, you recognise that vision. A good example is my friendship with Kashdeva, for instance. Very, very different. We're very different people. He's a composer, concert pianist, and you know, I'm not. I'm an artist. I'm quite different. And yet there's that recognition of our going for refuge, and beyond that, there's all sorts of kind of opportunities for mutual appreciation, and I really value that stuff. It really matters.
Yeah.
But back in the old days, you know, before I really got deeply involved in the Sangha, it was about supporting the same football team, you know, or whatever it was, you know.
Yeah, great. So I wonder if, I hope that's sort of drawn out kind of a bit more fully what we mean by friendship. It's quite a rich thing to unfold, but I wonder if we move on now more to how is it a practice? And just in order to do that, just to sort of sketch out a schema of the path, because as you said, there's this phrase that friendship is the whole of the spiritual life. So that's quite a lot
it is
of practice, isn't it? But we've got this schema, haven't we, of the 5 stages or 4 stages: integration, positive emotion, spiritual death, spiritual rebirth. So integration being where the spiritual life starts, that to do with kind of wholeness. You referenced this before, becoming a whole person, because you can't progress along the path with part of you only.
It's got to be all of you.
So that being the first stage, moving away from that sort of compartmentalised life, and then positive emotion is perhaps more self-explanatory. You need positive emotion for the spiritual life, a robustness. But then spiritual death is this point that, well, enlightenment really is the letting go of the illusion of self. So that's this aspect of something needs to die, in fact something that isn't there anyway. And spiritual rebirth is what can start to come through. So just to chart out the territory for anyone for whom that's newer. But I wanted to ask you about this area of of integration. So, in what way has friendship enabled you to integrate? You said something about feeling you could be yourself. So, in your previous experiences of Buddhist traditions,
it's a bit limited.
So you didn't fully feel like you could be yourself.
Fully feel that.
And what effect did that have? Kind of trying to practice Buddhism without just being able to sort of practice as you.
Well, I was just stuck in one place. I didn't feel I could fully move. And here I've got all this encouragement to become a better person, a deeper person, a more skilled person, a friendlier person. So friendships enabled me to do that. One of the aspects that's integrating, I think, for me is what we call vertical integration. So it's what we call horizontal integration. So I've talked a bit about that culturally, how I've become broader and wider and got to know more people. But there's also what we call vertical integration, where I've been able to integrate deeper Dharma teachings, which I don't understand at all, into who I am now. And one of the main ways I've been able to do that is through friendship with people who are more experienced on the path, who've been able to see me and see my potential because they're very experienced.
So they could see something that you couldn't see.
They couldn't, that's right. They were able to see that quite early on in a way that I wasn't. I'm now in a position where I can do that myself with other people who are less experienced, because I'm a preceptor, I ordain people, and I'm able to see their potential. But back then I couldn't do that, and it's obvious to me that I'm what's called a faith type. So according to the Visuddhimagga, this ancient Buddhist text, there's three kinds of people. There's what's faith types, wisdom types, and creative speculative types. We largely fall into a particular category. We approach the Dharma in a particular way. And I'm very definitely a faith type. My name means the king of faith. But on my ordination course, which lasted 4 months in Spain, I had quite a lot of doubts going on, actually. And I thought, oh my goodness, I'm here on this course, wearing these robes, head was all shaved, kind of going to be inducted into this order. My goodness, am I able to do this? Am I good enough? Do I really feel I'm going for refuge to the three jewels properly? Am I going to make a mess of it all? And I went to my preceptor, Subhuti, who knew me very well, and I said, look, I'm not sure I've got enough faith, I'm not sure I really behind this. And he's very much a wisdom type. And he laughed out loud when I said that to him. He laughed so loud that it echoed down the valley and everyone could hear it. And because he just thought that it was ridiculous. That I was so obviously ready, and I couldn't see that. But it was very, very helpful to me. And in the years since, 35 years since, I've kind of seen, he was right. And but I couldn't see it at the time. But he could. And I've grown to really trust that. With certain people, they do know what's going to work for me. I'll give you another example. 23 years ago, as a result of friendship, actually, my friendship with Aditya Bodhi, who was an Indian order member, he was always trying to get me to come to India. And I said, no, it's a crazy, mad place, India. There's no way I'm ever going to go there, thank you very much. But he kept it up. And eventually I went to see Saddharaja, and I said, look, I am thinking about going there, and what do you think? And working for the Dharma. And he said, well, if you go there, you will get more than you give. And I was quite puzzled by that at the time, but I did go. And I've been working there, extensively for 23 years now. And he was absolutely dead right. Because Yes, I've given quite a lot, you know, and travelled. I was out there in January, travelling around India, working away, and but I feel I've received so much from the Sangha in terms of friendship, in terms of inspiration, that I couldn't pay all that back. It's so enormous, and I love going there, and I love doing that work, and it's very, very important to me. And he was right.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have been able to see that without that kind of inspiration from him, really.
Yeah.
So I feel there's been a kind of vertical integration has gone on quite a bit as well.
Yeah. No, that's great. Yeah. So this thing, it sounds all very easy, doesn't it? Being yourself.
Yeah.
But in actual fact,
Yeah.
discovering who you are. By yourself is possibly impossible. I don't know, but anyway, you're saying it's incredibly helpful to
Oh
have.
yeah.
And that could only have emerged from people allowing people to get to know you.
That's
and
right.
you getting to know them. Yeah. That's great.
It's not like I just listen to anybody who's experienced. They've got to know me, and
I could tell you a few things about you.
and I might listen, but you know, it's that I do feel need to be in a proper relationship with them. Do you know what I mean? And
it's someone whose opinion you really trusted. Isn't it? Yeah. Great. I wonder if I could borrow somebody's watch, because I haven't picked up a timepiece, which is a slight omission.
3 minutes to 8.
3 to 8.
Thanks.
Press the button. Can you do it?
Just press the button on the side. Great. So there's this other aspect of positive emotion, which kind of very clearly relates to friendship, perhaps more clearly. I mean, I guess kind of perhaps one thing to say is that the spiritual life is demanding, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's really at times it really stretches you, even scary to engage with the spiritual life. So. You need quite a lot of positivity to.
You do.
And I was quite struck by what you were saying about recent friendships. You said with a recent friend, Shubhanaga and Simone, that it was one of the greatest gifts in the last few years of your life.
So I've become friends with Shubhanaga. He's one of the teachers at the centre, and I didn't really know him about 4 or 5 years ago. I didn't know him at all. But actually, I think you're responsible, because you said to Shubhanaga, you really should get to know Saddharaja, he's a good guy. And so Shubhanaga came up to me one day in the Buddhist Centre and said, could we meet up? And that's just led into this sort of wonderful world of friendship, really. But some of you might know he's got a partner, Simone, and she spent 6 years in bed with chronic fatigue, and really serious chronic fatigue. And I didn't know her, really. I didn't know her at all. But I've spent a lot of that time, the last at least 4 years, caring for her. And what's good is she's getting well. She's almost recovered, and she's out and about. And yesterday I went for a bike ride with her. We had breakfast and then went for a bike ride. I mean, a year ago I was still feeding her in bed, and so it's great. It's fantastic. But what's come out of it is this really quite a wonderful friendship. We really got to know each other in a very particular kind of way. Often she's been in bed just in a terrible state, and I've been reading to her or meditating at the foot of her bed or whatever it is, as well as all the other things you've got to do when you care for somebody. But it's gone deep. She's very deeply into the Dharma, and that's been a gift, actually. But how that came about, I was just open to the possibility of all that, and it's just led into this wonderful, wonderful area. Another great thing is I have spent 23 years in India working with this very irritating man called Aditya Bodhi, who I met on a mission, and he said, when are you coming to India? When are you coming to India? And he just kept it up. And eventually, just to sort of get rid of him, I kind of booked a flight out there and went there. And I landed this is 2003 in Mumbai, and within half an hour of being in India, I just totally loved it. And but we worked together so much, so many retreats, and we still are doing all these projects together out there. And what's happened is a really strange thing's happened in that our families have become intertwined. So my son and his son are friends, and my grandchildren and his grandchildren are friends, and kind of to the point where it's getting almost a bit spooky, in that his son is 42, my son's 42. His son is married to a teacher, my son's married to a teacher. His son's got 2 daughters, my son's got 2 daughters. And 15 years ago, my son developed kidney problems, and it was looking like I was going to have to donate a kidney to him. In the end, he recovered, and he's healthy and well. The last few years, Vishal, Adityabody's son, has developed kidney, and in the first week of June, Adityabody is going to donate a kidney to save his life. Mm-hmm. Now, what's going on there? Mm-hmm. That's got to be more than kind of coincidence. So the 2 families now kind of interact with each other. Even our finances have become a bit fluid with each other. Right. You know, they're helping me, we help them, all this kind of stuff. It's something. How did all that happen? Mm-hmm. So I feel it's very, very rich experience for me. Mm. And when I stay there, they say, you are Indian, Saddharaja. You know, you're part of us, you're part of India, you're here. It feels like that. Yeah. I'm just part of their family and they're part of mine. Yeah. Yeah. So that's a wonderful, rich area, which I don't know how that you could find something like that in ordinary life.
And you know, really interesting the situation you mentioned, caring with Simone. That was something you got into through friendship with Shubhanaga.
Through friendship with Shubhanaga.
So there's this maxim that in order to have a friend, you need to be a friend, and I think you very much.
I think that's the other big thing for me with friendship that I've learned is it's all about other regarding. It's not about self-regarding, or self-regarding only. It's in order to have friendship, you've got to be friend. You've got to be active in relation to friendship. And what a liberation that is when you're active and giving to others. Well, it's certainly the happiest I've felt in my life. Benefits and kind of liberation comes about in a way which I've never been able to achieve if I just do what I want to do. Say I get a Saturday and I think, it's Saturday, I'm going to do exactly what I want to do for me today, you know, and I'm going to do this and do that and go and see a movie. Well, it's kind of okay when I do that. It's usually slightly disappointing, but it's okay. But if I was then to go and see Simone and help her out with stuff, I would feel a lot better, you know, genuinely better. And or meet up with Luke or something like that, I would feel a lot better. It's hard to put that into words.
Yeah, but that's what you mean by the greatest gift.
It's the greatest gift, and, you know, self-clinging, self-cherishing is kind of loosened, this egoistic, and you're becoming more connected with other people, and the world expands and becomes much bigger. So from that point of view, here's all of the spiritual life. You know, that's connected with the Bodhisattva ideal, and so I've had a real taste of that. Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, there's more to do.
So this is starting to stray into the area of spiritual death, isn't it? Kind of letting go of self. So I wondered, you said something very interesting about, you know, because friendship sounds very close to this area of preference, likes and dislikes. You know, I like these people, I don't like that people. You're not going to be friends with people you don't like, are you? You know, but actually, you've said recently that you completely dropped all that sort of putting people in friend camp or not friend. You're completely open.
I'm just open.
It could come from any direction.
It could come from any direction. So I took on this practice sometimes if I'm in a room with strangers in a Sangha or a retreat or something. I'll probably think, well, I'd like to get on with him probably, but I don't think I could get on with her. And you do these little mind games, don't you? And I don't do that at all now. I just go to somebody, and it always seems to go well. Somehow, if I just go to anybody, whether I'm interested in them or not, and it always leads into something really worthwhile. So I'm just open, and I'm open to anyone with friendship who wants friendship with me. I will always respond. And I used to think, well, I haven't got time, but I have got time. Somehow it works out. I always find a way of doing that. And
so in terms of this notion of spiritual rebirth, that with a spiritual death, something else can emerge that would be impeded.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what has arisen from that sort of new approach to life of completely dismissing likes and dislikes?
I think I've ended up taking on responsibilities and got involved in projects which I would never thought I could ever do or ever thought that I'd be capable of. I've ended up becoming a different kind of person just simply because someone's drawn me into that and I could see the value of it. In the last 5 years since lockdown, I've cycled thousands and thousands of miles across the UK and USA, and I raised 84,000 quid for down a project in India. I never thought I could do something like that. Never thought I could be a preceptor who ordained people, and I never thought these things. So that was a bit of a spiritual rebirth in that, through following through friends' encouragement, I've grown into another kind of person with abilities I didn't think I had.
Yeah, that's great. There's this other element, I suppose, of ego, which is limitation. We draw a line. I can do this much, and beyond that is too much. I'm not going to do that. And you were talking about that area as well, that you've recently sort of let go of a certain sort of personal limiter in terms of how much friendship, how many people you're able to.
I'm just open. Just open. When I was in India in January, I was in an area of Rajasthan, and a woman approached me and said, "Can we keep in contact? I'd really like to do that." Very poor woman, but she's got a mobile phone. I can keep in contact with her, and so that's developing. It's like someone can. Yeah, of course you can. That would be really, really good. I would love to do that. So I'm open to all, whatever quarter it comes from. And you never know where it's going to come from. And that's the beautiful thing about it. I go to a gym in Anglia Ruskin University, and it's full of young people. And I'm just, most people are like about 45 years younger than me in the gym. But I get to know them, and then they ask me what I'm doing, and I tell them, and it's like, oh, I'm really interested in that. Kind of, I might come to the Buddhist Centre, and you just don't know. It can happen, can't it? If you're open.
That's great. I suppose it can sound very highfalutin, kind of non-self and selflessness, can't it? But what you've evoked there is very, very. It could be mistaken for an very ordinary quality, couldn't it? But actually, there's something very beautiful actually about the way you've evoked that. Yeah.
There's another aspect to it, though, is that I have I'm quite happy to fail as well, and fail kind of miserably even. I'm happy to kind of not do something very well. I've got a favourite phrase which I often trot out now.
If a job's worth doing,
it's worth doing badly. And it's a quote by an author called G.K. Chesterton. And I'll just have a go and get better. And sometimes things don't work out. I make a bit of a hash, but I learn from that and get better. But I'm happy to say, hey, I wasn't that good really. I was pretty poor, in fact. Sorry about that. And I think in the past, and I really am not very good sometimes, and in the past I couldn't have accepted that. I think the ego clinging would have been too strong, And also I've got friends who will take the rise out of me as well when it's not going very well, but I know where they're coming from and how useful that is. Useless. Freudian slip. My friends do reflect me back. There was a night here about a year ago where I gave a talk and did a presentation. It was I think it was pretty good. I think it was solid. But for some reason I wasn't quite in the mood, and I kind of thought, I didn't do that very well, did I? And I texted Dharma City, who's a close friend and knows me well, and said, was that all right? How did I do? and I'm not sure I did a good job. And he wrote back, he said, you know, what is this? And he was saying, you know, I don't need to kind of give you feedback about your talk or anything like that. You know exactly what you're doing, and you know, and that's because he knows me so well. He's able to do that. It was so refreshing to kind of get. It's like mirroring back.
Being reflected about, yeah.
My whatever it was, confusion or something on that occasion. Yeah, because we all have off days, don't we? Yeah. Yeah.
Great. Saddharaja.
Is that us?
Thanks
Is that
very
done?
much. That's
Okay,
us.
good.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I hope that's given you a bit of a feel for kind of my practice of. And please come and talk to me. I'd like to get to know you.
Great. Thanks very much.
Thank you.